Buffalo Soldiers were black men fighting for a country that had just enslaved them. Plains Native nations were fighting to keep a freedom they've always had. And the US Army spent decades trying to get these two to face each other on the battlefield. That's the story of the Plains Indian Wars. Right after the Civil War, Congress created all black regiments. The 9th and the 10th Cavalry, the 24th and the 25th Regiment. We know them as Buffalo Soldiers. Plains nations gave them that name. Maybe their hair resembled that of a buffalo, or maybe it's because of how hard they fought in battle. Most of these men were formerly enslaved. They joined the army because it meant steady food, steady pay, and a chance at something better in a country that saw them less than human. And the job the army gave them, support westward expansion. On the plains and in the Southwest, that meant fighting Native nations who refused to leave their homelands. They spent more than 20 years in campaigns against the Kiowa, the Cheyenne, the Comanche, the Apache, and others, often on the very front lines. At the Guadalupe Mountains, the Park Service describes it like this. Black soldiers are fighting for a freedom they had never known, while Apaches were fighting for a freedom they've always had. That's not a simple story of good guys versus bad guys, but a story of survivors versus survivors. Buffalo Soldiers themselves dealt with brutal conditions, burning heat, freezing winters, lack of supplies, disease, racist officers, hostile civilians. Native nations were facing broken treaties, starvation policies, and reservations carved out of their own territories. Meanwhile, the same government using black troops to push out Native nations in the West were still utilizing segregation, lynching, and Jim Crow laws in the East. Nobody at the top cared which of us survived, as long as the land opened up for railroads, ranchers, and mines. So yes, some of our Native communities remember Buffalo Soldiers as people who rode onto our homelands, and black communities remember them as people who fought, bled, and fought for a country that never saw them as human. Both of these memories are real. The point of the story isn't to pit black and Native people against one another. It's to show how the same system weaponized us against one another, and to make sure that we don't keep letting it do that. We can't change the orders that they were given back then. But today, black, Native, and Afro-Indigenous people can make a different choice. The same land, the same history, but this time we stand on the same side. Like the video, follow the page. Have a great day. Buffalo Soldiers were black men fighting for a country that had just enslaved them. Plains Native nations were fighting to...
This is the book of Ezekiel 37:19. Say unto them, thus saith Yahweh, behold, I will take the stick of Joseph, which is in the hand of Ephraim, and the tribes of Israel, his fellows, and will put them with him, even with the stick of Judah, and make them one stick. Make them one stick, and they shall be one in mine hand. Shalom, shalom. First off, I want to give all praises, honor, and glory to Yahweh, Ba'ashem, Yahushai, Ba'ashem, Akakadash, Yahweh being the true name of Heavenly Father, Yahweh Shai being named for his only begotten Son, who the Royal Igley calls God, and Jesus Christ. I want to give double honor to our apostles, double honor to our elders, a great millstone, and Tasha's truth and will well, and salutations to you, hopefully pushing his truth and honesty and sincerity. This is Brother Yawasop, coaching another in-transit lesson to the spirit power of Yahweh, Ba'ashem, Yahushai. And this lesson is going to be in response to that video I just came across, decided to share with the body, you know, because this is historical facts. And the guy that's speaking on that, he appears to be a Gadite, or he could maybe be Issachar. Nonetheless, he looks like he's Northern Kingdom, and he brought out some truth that a lot of people don't know. Okay, so this is where a lot of that hatred, brown on brown or brown on black hatred comes from. It stems from this so-called white man pinning us against each other. And this is a huge example of that. Okay, but the fact that this historical information is being brought back out and is being talked about now and shared on a mass scale means that this prophecy is coming to pass and is being fulfilled. And part of it already has, because now you have so-called Latinos, so-called Native Americans, and so-called blacks standing together at the highways and hedges prophesying against America. Okay, and those people are called the Hebrew Israelites. All right, we're the true tribes of Israel. So-called blacks, so-called Latinos, so-called Native Americans, those are the true lost tribes of Israel. Okay, so yes, we were forced to fight each other to the death. You You know, and I've heard about the Buffalo Soldiers, man. You know, speaking of someone that was once in the military, you know, I've you know, taken time to really read a lot about them and study them and watch documentaries about them, you know. And it's sad, man, that they were forced to basically fight their brothers, man. These are your brothers, the so-called Native Americans. And you so-called natives, so-called Negroes are your brothers. And, you know, this is an account of where we're forced to fight each other. But there's other accounts, plethora of accounts, of runaway slaves running away and then them being taken in by the local tribes, guarded, protected, fed, you know, nurtured, healed. And they stand together, you know, they, you know, had children, shared families. So you got a lot of so-called Negroes that might think that they're so-called Negroes or so-called African Americans or from Africa as far as ancestry goes, but really it goes back to Native Americans over here that were living in this land, you know. So I wanted to put out this quick in transit lesson to you know, capitalize and forward that spirit of this prophecy to bring it in even heavier. Because the more our people stand together, you know, the faster we can get the fuck up out of here, man. You know? And ultimately it's on the Lord's time. But there's certain things the Lord said what would happen. And the so-called blacks, Latinos, and natives all fighting each other, hating each other, you know, getting mad if you accidentally identify a Mexican as a Puerto Rican. That shit about to be dead. You know? Getting mad that a so-called Puerto Rican is mistakenly identified as Cuban. You know? So-called Mexicans looking down at Negroes because you got a lot of Mexicans that think they're white. They think they're white. And you look down on the so-called blacks. But we're starting to see our people, you know, really kind of click up, man. You know, especially with this protest. ICE, what everything ICE is doing right now is bringing our people together. Because we're starting to see, some of our people are starting to see that, hey, look, we both are oppressed and enslaved together. We've both been fucked up equally terribly by this so-called white man. Which is Esau Edom, is his true nationality found within the scriptures. Okay? So our people gotta, you know, wake up. Wake up, man, and recognize who your real family is. Now, 2/3 are going to be 2/3. They're still going to hate each other and still forward Esau's plan, his agendas, his wickedness, his witchcraft. You know, they're still going to be a part of that. You know, because the CIA and different high government American entities have gone through great extents to have us fight one another and kill one another. They would not have been able to accomplish none of their military feats as far as the genocide and conquering of all these other countries if it was not for them forcing the Negroes and the natives and the Latinos in to sign up in their military. Okay? You know, because all of their military tactics, man, they learned from us. Look at what they named some of their equipment. They got named Apache helicopters. Why is that? All the special forces, Navy SEALs training, all that warfare, that was all taught and learned by living and, you know, having our people in oppression and writing down, taking down notes and enlisting our people in their military. So you need to really think about this fact that was shared in that video before you want to get up and go celebrate some 4th of July. Because you're celebrating, you know, the genocide and the slavery and then forcing you to kill each other in order to make this place called America. And you're still looked at less than a human being. That shit is still written in the Constitution. You're not even considered a full man. There was never any reparation that was given. All that casino shit that they claim that, you know, so-called Native Americans, you know, getting money from casinos, that shit's a bull-faced lie. And if there is any money, it's so little, it doesn't amount to anything. It's the amount of pennies. Because if it was of any money of any amount, then why do you have so-called natives so poor, living like a third world country on these reservations? Can't even get clean drinking water. Have to fight for electricity. You know, and all their income they get is basically just trying to have some powwows to raise a little bit of change. You know, we got a powwow coming up here in the Kansas City area from the Potawatomi Nation. In the Lord's will, I can make it there. I want to get some good videos of, you know, some of the culture that was not lost amongst our people, because Gad is real good for that. You know, still carry on, you know, the blue borders and the fringes, you know, keeping some of the Sabbaths, some of the ceremonies we did in the ancient world, they kind of kept, and they kept that look of what an Israelite looked like, you know. But our people, man, all of y'all got fucked up together, man. Okay, all you Latinos too, man, y'all all got oppressed. You're still being oppressed, and right now they about to force that chip, you know, on the Mexicans, because the Mexican government is going to 100% digital currency. I already went to it. So they going to CBDs and all this stuff, man. And, you know, our people are all oppressed together. Look at what ICE is, how bad ICE is doing our people, man. You got still our people sitting up there in concentration camps, man. You know, they're calling them ICE detention centers, and they're treating our people horribly in there. Modern day slavery. And some of them are being experimented on. They're not telling you about. They're chipping some of them up. Forced labor. Human trafficking. They're put in their rings. They're being sold, man. So a lot of y'all got to recognize who your true enemy is. And it's the same people that force you to fight these wars, man. The Plains Wars. You know? Buffalo Soldiers. And you got a lot of Native American people that are enlisted in Esau's military. And some of them did it because they, you know, it's not that they're patriotic. It's the same situation from the jump with the guy bringing out the video. They have no choice. They're looking for other ways to kind of make money and survive. And Gad, you know, means troop. So that people, our people, that part of the Hebrew Israelites, that is the special forces of Israel. They're really into, you know, warfare, making weapons, and they perfected that. You know, you have like the last Navajo code talker. He just passed away. We actually invented and taught these people sign language. It's another part of our history. We're able to communicate completely silently. You know, from a far distance, from hundreds of yards away, we were able to make different hand signals and communicate with different bird sounds, you know, to get the advantage over the enemy. So all that code talking stuff, they wouldn't have that if it was not for us, man. We are the former of all things. You know, the former of all things, man. You know, so I just kind of wanted to do a quick hit in transit to kind of share that information. You know, so more videos like that come out. You know, because us brothers, you know, we want to see more of our people waking up. You know, I would love to see more of Northern Kingdom gravitating towards this truth. We do got a lot of Northern Kingdom, man. Well, it's a lot of camps is mostly kind of like West Coast. You got a little bit of East Coast, like Chicago area, and Colorado camp. You know, Denver out there. You got Northern Kingdom brothers, but hey, it's not enough of y'all, man. Need to stand up and wake up to this truth, man. You know, hey, it's time for us to become one stick. We're at the end of this thing, so we're about to see Jake standing up together against Esau. This is his biggest fear, and there's nothing he can do to stop it. What he always wanted to see, like he brought up in that video, is to see us go to war and fight each other. He said he was going through great extents trying that for a long time. And he accomplished that in some of these wars that he did. But now, it's time for his worst fear to be activated. And that's us waking up to who we are and standing together, man. And saying shalom to each other, you know, Yahweh Shem Shai Barakatah. Stand up, call upon the name of Yahweh Shem Shai. Coming back to our true heritage and culture. And recognizing and understanding, hey, this is my blood brother. We all the same people, man. You know, so Lord's will, this quick hit in transit was edifying. I'm going to close out. Give all praises, honor, and glory to Yahweh, by Hashem Yahushai, by Hashem Kakadash. Double honors to our apostles and elders, great millstone, Tasha's truth and will well. Salutation, Hafalek pushes truth and honest sincerity. Shalom.